I already ranted about Paragon before, and the bloody thing isn't even out yet. And further investigation of upcoming elite specs clearly indicates that there is certainly more worth criticizing than just this one spec. But I have unhealthy fixation on Warrior, and therefore, here we bloody go again. Going through Paragon's toolset one more time, I noticed something, not the bug again, something different. A decent portion of its toolkit is dedicated to fixing problems that don't exist, or problems that were specifically created just to make this spec unfun and obnoxious to play. Let me give you an example. You have this trait, which reduces cooldowns of chants each time you activate one. And you'd think, okay, that's probably needed to generate alacrity because cooldowns of chants are long. However, Warrior can achieve 100% boon upkeep without food buffs, and with them just smashes its head into the cap, while alacrity granted from Fairwish Pulse is 3 seconds baseline, meaning 6 seconds with full boon duration. Base cooldown of Chant of Action is 8 seconds in PvE. Reduced to 6 with alacrity, this skill will provide for itself, meaning that technically Paragon will be able to upkeep alacrity with just repeat casting Chant of Action. Unless ArenaNet decided to do something comically stupid like making the alacrity be granted on switching refrains instead of casting chants. Why? Possibly they did it so call to action grants alacrity, but also it makes it so you can't continuously refresh the boon with the same button being cast off cooldown, severely complicating both Paragon's gameplay and his adrenaline problems in PvE specifically. Because it's switching, not casting, that grants alacrity, you'll have to activate Reprieve by getting into combat, then cast Chant of Recuperation for 12 seconds of alacrity, then wait 12 seconds and cast Chant of Action into Chant of Recuperation every 12 seconds. Or cast Chant of Action immediately after Chant of Recuperation, so you're back in Refrain of Action, and then go Chant of Recuperation into Chant of Action every 12 seconds again. And it still won't be 100% uptime because of cast times, and you cannot grant alacrity by casting Chant of Action while you have Refrain of Action active. So you cannot take advantage of its short cooldown. Of course, you can throw in Chant of Freedom every now and then to upkeep that full alacrity, but that means adding third button that needs to be kept track of and that needs to be fed adrenaline. And of course, we can't keep it for emergency situations. All the while, we still have to spend 10 adrenaline every weapon swap, which is every 5 seconds, to upkeep protection with Soldier's Comfort Martial Cadence combo. If alacrity was given just on the activation of a chant, you could quite easily upkeep alacrity with just using Chant of Action and Chant of Recuperation, and none of this would be necessary. Adrenaline requirement would be lower, piloting the spec would be simpler, and you could still make Call to Action grant alacrity by making it just cast lesser Chant of Action, like Defy Pain casts lesser Endure Pain, and so it activates Last Stand. Instead, arena nerds decided to overcomplicate this system for no reason, to waste design space and cause problems, only to then introduce solution to those problems which is still unnecessary and competes with adrenaline generation options which are ever more needed because the solution they implemented increases the need for adrenaline as well. This is just stupid design. I can't even call it anything else. Moreover, traits like Calming Tongue, a healing power and concentration steroid added to a class that can out-heal extremely threatening damage field without it and achieves boon duration cap without food buffs. Why? Oh wait, I know why. So it stacks with vigorous shouts and makes the healing numbers in PvP and World v World completely fragging stupid, so we can brute force this spec into viability. You know what I see happening? I see vigorous shouts getting nerfed because this exists, so that Spellbreaker physically cannot shout heal. Once again introducing new problems by trying to fix one that don't exist. Moreover, Reverberation seems to be what Paragon's commands are all balanced around, and the commands themselves deserve a shitstorm and a half, because the only value they bring as a whole is a heal skill that heals AoE by default. And that's it. We shall return does initial heal of 4k HP, and then a follow-up that heals for 2k and cleanses 2 conditions. That's in PvE with PvE numbers. With Relic of Trooper, Vigorous Shouts and Shrug It Off, one cast of To The Limit heals self for 7.5k, and everyone in shout range for 3.5k, and it cleanses 3 conditions. That's in PvP numbers. Sure, it's more of a setup, but not only do you heal yourself for about 12k and everyone else for almost 4, but you also feel your endurance and adrenaline, and can heal with it from further away. But most importantly, any support build in PvP is going to run that specific setup, because Martial Cadence is too unreliable as a group support tool to be feasibly utilized in versus modes. Everyone will run Vigorous Shouts anyway, therefore why would anyone run We Shall Return outside of PvE when To The Limit exists? And moving onward, why would anyone run Find Their Weakness instead of 4 Great Justice, which works with Vigorous Shouts and doesn't need to hit the enemy to give might, and gives it in greater range and without any stupid delay? And why would a Paragon run Never Surrender, when they can get resistance from Chant of Reverberation or from Banner of Tactics, and Shake It Off is just better stun break for Warrior, period? Why would anyone run On Your Knees? Like, period. Why would anyone run On Your Knees? If you want to immobilize a singular person, fucking Throwbola will do a better job. And if you want to hit a team or a Zerg with it, you're just going to get eaten, because you sacrificed a utility slot which could host a hard mitigation or stability or resistance access to make a funny interaction with a trait. Anyone with intelligence above Broom Handle will just run Staff for Staff 4, which can be made unblockable with Staff 3. So we have unblockable Staff 4, which pulls enemies, meaning you don't have to put yourself at that big of a risk, and then you can swap weapons to, for example, Sword Warhorn, and you will have Sword Flurry to immobilize enemies with. Why would anyone run fucking On Your Knees? And ending this segment, perhaps most importantly, who the hell would run We Will Never Yield instead of Battle Standard? If you have a skill that is meant to save people's lives, but it has a built-in 3 seconds delay, then it only takes for them to go down within those 3 seconds before the skill kicks in for everything to go to bloody waste immediately. We're in the same situation. With Standard, you can just pop them back up from downstate. And if no one is going to run commands, then who the hell will run Reverberation? Reverberation only exists because commands were poorly designed. The delay mechanic is fucking garbage, so they slapped an artificial modifier on top of everything to hopefully make them artificially strong by numbers alone and force people to play this broken mess. Once again, introducing a problem only so you can introduce a fix no one asked for the problem that didn't have to exist in the first place. Except they forgot that by making every command redundant, they make them not worth taking, even with the bloody trait. And because the trait competes with one that gives passive sustain and adrenaline generation, not even bunker builds will run Reverberation. I'm going to say it how I see it. Every Paragon build will run Invigorating Tempo, every build in PvE will run Call to Action, and some small portion of PvP builds will run Calming Tongue. The only thing that's going to be changed is Grandmaster trait, which in PvE will be the top one, and in PvP will be the middle one. And if you don't know what you're doing, the bottom one. And that's still optimistically assuming that Paragon will be played in PvP or World Reward at all. Because, for those modes, seemingly everything it brings is just Ward's version of something Core Warrior already has, with less hurdles and no artificial problems introduced for the sake of causing problems. So what we bank on is quickness generation and damage reduction to either give us quickness spamming support or a bunker build. It is an actual disaster how rigid and hopeless it looks. If they ship Paragon like this, it's going to make love to Bladesword on the bottom of the garbage bin. And if they fix the Paragon like the fixed Spear, it's going to be the strongest thing in the game for about a month, before getting hotfixed nerfed, and then making love to Bladesword on the bottom of the garbage bin. Hopefully, without pulling the entire concept of shout healing down with it. And we still, after all this, won't have a supportive main hand weapon. Because why the fuck we would? Anyhow, a big sign of gratitude to all the generous supporters, continuously considering my dubious quality content worth their money. You're all truly welcome. Crabface out.